Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I will be talking about GitHub. So in another video, we were looking at local implementation using Git and version control. So if you're still unfamiliar with Git and version control, I would recommend that you check those out first before continuing on this video. In this video, we will look at how we can create a remote repository. So a repository that's hosted on somebody else's server or computer using GitHub. Now let's go over to GitHub and create a new account. If you don't have a GitHub account, go ahead and create an account. It's completely free. And once you've done that, let's sign in. So this is the page that you'll see first. And let's go ahead on the top right corner and create a new repository. We can call this repository, let's say project, and leave the description out for now. So we can either make this repository public, which means that anyone can see all the files inside your saved repository, and everything you commit to your remote repository will be public. If you don't want that, we can make it private, and that's what we're going to do right now. And if you scroll down, we can see that we have an option to add a README file, which is a text file that tells other people what your GitHub repository is about. But we're gonna skip all these steps for now and go ahead and create a repository. Now we can see that there are two ways we can set up our repository. We can either set up in GitHub for Mac on desktop, or we can use the command line instructions. What we'll do is push an existing repository we've got locally onto this remote repository. To do this, we can use these 3 lines of code to push our existing local repository from the command line. So now let's go over to terminal and set up our repository. So continuing off with our project we had in our Git or version control video where we had version 1, 2, and 3.txt file, we'll first cd into our project. So now we are currently in our project directory, and let's use git log to see what previous commits we have. So here we can see that we have committed our complete version 1 and complete version 2 and 3. We would like to push these previous commit into GitHub. So first we will create a remote repository by using git remote add origin. Origin is simply the name of the remote. You can theoretically call it anything you want, but by convention, and it is highly recommended to keep the name origin, as most programmers are used to the conventional naming, which will be easier for them to understand when they look at your project. And then after this, we add our URL of the remote repository. If you go back here, it's this link. So let's copy this and paste it over here. Now that the remote repository is created, we can push our local repository to our remote repository called origin. We can do this using git push -u origin master. This pushes your local repository to your remote repository using the -u flag, which links up your remote and local repository, and we're pushing it to a remote repository called origin and branch called master. The master branch is our default or main branch of all of our commits, and later on when we cover branching, we will talk about what is a master and a branch. So now let's press enter. Now let's head back to GitHub and refresh the page. We can see that all of our files are now hosted on GitHub, and it's complete with all of our commit messages. As we build out your project and make more commits, locally or remotely or both, you can see the progress of your files in your GitHub repository. Now let's talk about branching and merging. So we will start with a simple example. Say we have version 1 and 2, so 2 commits made to our local repository. At this point, we want to try something new, build new features, or just mess around with a new idea or concept. What we can do is instead of continuing with the master branch, which is the main branch here, we can create a side branch and start committing to this new branch. We add some features and more codes, and simultaneously, we can continue working on the main branch, adding some essential updates or bits of codes that are maintained in the main project. Now we have 2 branches that are parallel to each other and they can be developed simultaneously. If at some point in the future we want to include the experimental branch as it is really good, and we want to merge it back to the main branch or main project, we can do this by a merge request. We can bring all of these changes that we experimented with and messed around with back to the main project and check to see if there's any conflict with the main branch code. If not, or after a little bit of editing, then we can bring all of those changes to the main working master branch. Then we can continue working from here to the next commit or make more branches. In practice, we often see multiple branches that are being worked on at the same time for a large project. The reason is that sometimes we are developing new features or fixing bugs, and these changes may break your main project, so we don't want to do it on the master branch. We only want to put it on the master branch once you've tested and once you know that everything is working fine. Then we can bring your code back to the main branch ready for deployment. Let's take a look at how this would work in our project. So if we go back and do git log again, we can see that this is our recent commit and it is also in our remote repository. Now let's say if I decided that I want to make a new branch, we can do git branch and then the name of branch, and let's say edit. We can check what branches we have using git branch command. So the asterisk shows which branch we are currently on, and we can switch branches using git checkout and then the branch name. Now let's make some edits to our text file. Let's say in all the text file, we're gonna add a word hey at the end of every text file. Now let's commit that changes using git add dot, and then let's commit that. If we use git log, we can see that there are two commits on our master branch, which is complete version 2 and 3 and complete version 1, and one commit in our edit branch, which is modify files. Now let's go back to our master branch. Now if we go back and see our files, we can see that our files are unchanged. So while I'm on my master branch, I'm going to make a new file called version4.txt and add something to it. Let's commit those changes. And let's check git log again. And if we see here in our master branch, we can see that there's 3 commits, but only these 2 commits are in our local repository. If we switch back between branches to our edit branch, we can see that we no longer have our version4.txt, but we have our modified text with the hey word at the end. Let's say we're happy with these changes. We can merge these changes back to the master branch. To do that, we can go back to our master branch and merge changes to our edit branch. So to do that, we're going to use git merge and the branch name, which is edit. This opens up a Vim, which is a text editor, and this allows you to add a merge message if you want, or just leave it blank. So now we're just going to leave it blank, and we can exit this using :Q and exclamation mark and press enter. We can see now that we merged the branch to the master using git log, which we can see over here. At this point, we can do a git push to our origin master branch using git push origin master. Now, if you go to over GitHub, we can see now that there's 5 commits. If you go over insights and networks, we can see the process that we have gone through. So over here, we can see that this is our master branch, and this is where we create our site branch called edit branch. And after that, we merge it back to the master branch. So that concludes our video on GitHub. I hope that was helpful and look forward to more videos from Penn Engineering Council.